So, review from part 1 yesterday. How do I solve for x on number 1?
Square root.
Square root. What does x equal? How can I split that square root up? What's wrong with it?
Only square root of 16 times square root of negative 1.
Good. Yep, we take that negative 1 out. Okay. So, what's the square root of 16?
It'll be 4.
4 square root of negative 1? I. Yep. Remember, yesterday we learned that the square root of negative 1 equals that imaginary number I. Okay. Number 2, what's the operation happening?
You leave them the same.
Yep, operations addition, so we're going to leave them the same. So here I have 6 plus 8i, and then I have plus 2 minus 5i. What do I do from this step?
You
Combine like terms. 6 plus 2, 8. 8i minus 5i.
I got minus 3i.
Should get plus 3i. Yep. Is that in the form we wanted?
Oh yeah.
Yep, remember you want that a plus bi form. Yep. What about number 3?
Same thing, but you have to switch the other one half.
Because it's,
Negative.
yep, it's subtraction, so we keep the first parentheses and then switch the signs the last. And then what do we do from this step?
You do the combined like term.
Combining like terms. 6 minus 2.
It'll be 4.
4, 8i plus 5i.
13.
13i. Is it in the form we want?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Last 2 here. What operation's happening?
So that's
Multiplication. What do I do with this 3i right here? Distribute. 3i times 4. 12i, and then 3i times negative 3i.
negative 9i
Negative 9i
squared.
squared. What do I want to circle and understand right away?
The squared.
Yes. What does I squared equal? Negative 1. So I'm plugging in a negative 1 for that I squared. So I have 12i minus 9 times negative 1. Well, what's 9 times negative 1?
It would be positive 9.
Positive 9. Am I done?
Yeah. Oh wait, no, switch the 2.
Yep, we want an a plus bi form, so I need to rearrange. Okay. Last one here, number 5. What operation's happening?
The same as the beginning.
Multiplication, right? So think, since I have 2 numbers here, I'm distributing both one at a time. So 2 times 3 is
It would be 6.
6. 2 times I,
2i.
2i. Negative 4i times 3,
Negative 12i.
negative 12i. And then negative 4i times I,
Negative 4i squared.
negative 4i squared. What do I want to circle and understand right away?
Squared.
I squared. What is I squared?
Negative 1.
Yep. So I have 6 plus 2i minus 12i minus 4 times negative 1. What's negative 4 times negative 1?
4.
Yep.
And combine like term.
Correct. Last thing we got to do is combine like terms. So I have 6 plus 4,
10.
10, and then I have 2i minus 12i.
Negative 10i.
Negative 10i. Is it in the form we want?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Question. What makes all of our answers here complex numbers?
The I.
The I. The I is what makes them complex numbers. Okay? Remember, that I comes from the square root of negative 1. Okay? And then we use I squared equals negative 1 to help us continue simplifying our complex numbers. Okay? So, we did on example 5 right here. Okay? First thing I want to talk about is complex conjugates, okay? A little review from last year if you took geometry concepts with me, okay? What is wrong with this expression right here?
It doesn't work.
Why? What's wrong with it?
Square root on the bottom.
There's a square root on the bottom. Does anyone remember how we got rid of that square root on the bottom?
Square root at the top.
Not necessarily. We're going to multiply by something. We're going to multiply by the square root of 2 on the top and the bottom. Okay? Because that's going to help us get rid of it. We would multiply straight across. So that would give us 8 square root of 2. And then what's square root of 2 times square root of 2? Square root of
4.
4. Okay. Well, what's the square root of 4?
It'll be 2.
2. And then I can simplify this 8 and 2. What's 8 divided by 2? 4 square root of 2. What we're going to see with complex numbers is a very similar concept, okay? It's called conjugates, so I'm just going to put 2 over, write this off to the side in your margins on example 4. 2 divided by 7 minus 8i. Similar idea as the square root, we do not want complex numbers in the bottom. Okay, how do I know that 7 minus 8i is a complex number? Because it has the I, okay? We do not want complex numbers in the denominator, okay? Does anyone have an idea to get rid of that? Not necessarily. We are going to flip something, though, okay? Conjugates is what it's called. The conjugate is multiplying by the opposite imaginary number. Okay, so what we're doing, instead of 7 minus 8i, we're going to multiply by 7 plus 8i. That's the conjugate. Okay? So we're multiplying by the conjugate of that bottom complex number. You're just switching that middle sign. Okay? From here, everything's the same as what we did yesterday. Okay? So we multiply straight across. Here I have 2 times 7 is... What's 2 times 7? 14. What is 2 times 8i? 16. I. Okay? On the bottom, put parentheses around that first one. Okay, what are we going to do to solve the bottom? It's just like we're going to distribute both. So take 7 times 7 is 49. And then I have 7 times 8i. 56i. And then negative 8i times 7. Minus 56i. And then negative 8i times 8i. Negative 64i squared. Again, what do I want you to circle and understand?
The square.
I squared. Well, what does I squared equal?
Negative 1.
-1. Okay. Can I do anything with the top, simplifying wise?
No.
Nope. So I'm going to leave the top. 14 plus 16i. What do you notice happens between these I values? They're the same, so what happens? They cancel each other out. Yep. So I'm left with 49. What's negative 64 times negative 1? Positive 64. Okay, again, we said we can't do anything with the top. What do I do with the bottom? Add them together, so I get 113. We're going to leave that as our answer. How do I know that I'm done? What was the whole goal?
To get I on the top.
We want to get I out of the bottom, okay? What do you notice by multiplying by the conjugate here? What do you notice happened?
I disappeared from the bottom.
The i's were gone, right? That is the whole reason we multiply by the conjugate, okay? Because when you multiply by the conjugate, you are guaranteed that the i's are going to cancel each other out. Okay, so let's do a couple examples real quick. I'm just going to ask you a simple question. You don't have to write this down. What is the conjugate of 2 minus 3i? What's the conjugate of that? So again, conjugate, we're just going to flip this sign. So the conjugate of this would be 2 plus 3i. There we go. Let's do some more. What about 2 plus 4i? What's the conjugate of that? Go again. 2 minus 4i. Good. Something else we need to talk about. If I had a negative in front of here. No. The only thing that still changes is the one in front of the imaginary number. Okay? So that negative 3 stays, and then this turns into minus 2i. Yep. Let's do a couple more. If I had negative 5 minus 6i. What's the conjugate of that? Negative 5 plus 6i. Okay. One more. Let's do negative 7 minus 8i. Negative 7 plus 8i. Okay. Those are the conjugates. Again, with the conjugate, all that's changing is the sign in front of the imaginary number. How do you know which one's the imaginary number? The one with I. Okay? Notice how these negatives right here and these positives, they stayed the same in the end. Okay, so the conjugate, all that's happening is you're changing the sign that's in the middle. Okay? All right, let's do some more examples. Go ahead and write this one off to the side. If I have 10 over 2 minus I, what's wrong with this right now? I is on the bottom. How do we get rid of the I on the bottom? Remember the conjugate? We're going to multiply by the conjugate. What's the conjugate of 2 minus I? 2 plus I. So we're going to multiply by 2 plus I on the top and 2 plus I on the bottom. From here, what do we do on the top?
Multiply 10
Yep.
and 2 and then 10 and
Yep, 10 times 2,
20.
20. 10 times I,
10
10I. Moving on to the bottom. What should I do with this right here?
parentheses.
Put parentheses around it so it reminds you, okay? Now we're going to distribute both. What's 2 times 2? 4. What's 2 times I? 2I. What's negative I times 2?
Negative 2i.
Negative 2I. And then what's negative I times I? Negative I squared. What do I want you to circle understand right away?
Negative I squared.
I squared. Just the I squared part. What does I squared equal? Negative 1. Okay? When I rewrite this, can I do anything with the top? Nope, top stays the same. 20 plus 10i. What happens to these i's in the middle?
Cancel.
They cancel. Remember, that should happen every time. If it didn't happen, you did something wrong and you're multiplying. Okay? So now what I have left is 4. What's negative 1 times negative 1?
1.
Yep, because remember right here we still have that negative 1 there. So then we have positive 1. What's the last thing I need to do here?
Add those together.
Yep, 20 plus 10i divided by
5.
5. There is one more thing we could do. Do we know what that is? Simplify, yep. How many times does 5 go into 20?
4.
4. How many times does 5 go into 10?
2.
2, and then we still have I. Okay, if you get to this step right here, that is perfect. Okay, but let's work our way to get to that step. Okay, so things to check. Making sure you're multiplying by the right term or the right conjugate. Okay, and then using this step right here as a double check. Okay, if these i's right here do not cancel out, you did something wrong. Okay? All right, look at that example on your notes. Just so we aren't working with such big numbers, change that 80 to an 8. So go 8 over 2 minus 6i. What's wrong with this expression right here? I's on the bottom. We want to get rid of that. How do I get rid of that? Multiplying by the conjugate. What's the conjugate of 2 minus 6i?
2 plus 6i.
2 plus 6i. Yep. So multiply by 2 plus 6i on the top and the bottom. What's going to be happening on the top? Yep. 8 times 6. 16. 8 times 6i. 48i. Okay. What do I do on the bottom? Yep. Think of this as put parentheses around those. So I take 2 times 2. 4. 2 times 6i. 12i. Negative 6i times 2. Negative 12i. And then negative 6i times 6i.
Negative 36i.
Yes.
Squared.
Negative 36i squared. What do I want you to understand? I squared equals negative 1. What else happens in this step?
It'll become positive 36.
The i's cancel out, and yes. Okay, is anything going to happen on the top? Nope. 6 plus 48i. On the bottom, I have 4, and then I heard this turns into a positive 36.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you just add the bottom. So 16 plus 48i over
40.
40. Again, don't worry about simplifying right now. We're just understanding the solving part right now. Okay? That next it's on this page. Okay. So that part B, says 4 minus 3i over -1 plus 2i. Real quick to get you started, what are we going to multiply by?
-1 plus, or minus -2.
-1 minus 2i. Yep, remember the only sign that's changing is the 1 in front of the imaginary number. So -1 minus 2i. What are you going to do on the top and the bottom?
Parentheses.
Yep, parentheses, and then you're going to distribute all of those terms. Okay? Let's focus on the top first. What am I going to start distributing? Yep. 4 times -1? -4. 4 times -2i? -8i. Good. And then I have -3i times -1 plus 3i. And then -3i times -6i. -2i.
Squared.
6i squared. Okay, just so you don't forget about it, circle that I squared. What does that I squared equal? -1. Okay, let's move on to the bottom. -1 times -1. 1. -1 times -2i. Plus 2i. 2i times -1. -2i. And then 2i times -2i. -4i squared. What should we circle? I squared. What's it equal? -1. Let's take it all one at a time. Okay. The top, we have -4 minus 8i plus 3i. What's 6 times -1? This right here. -6. Good. Let's focus on the bottom. What happens on the bottom? What happens right here? Okay, this turns to a +4. Good. What happens to these right here? Yep. Should that happen every time? Yes. So here I have 1 plus 4. Are we done? No. See if you can simplify. Can I simplify the top?
Yes.
Yep. I have like terms. -4 minus 6. -10. -8i plus 3i. -5i. And then divided by 1 plus 4? 5. Okay. This one we can simplify. What is -10 divided by 5? -2. What's -5 divided by 5? -1i. Is that in the form we want? We still want an a plus bi?
Yeah.
Yes.
B is 1.
Correct. -1. Yep. Yep. Remember that there's still technically, just like the x's, if there's not a number there, we can assume it's 1.
If
Okay.
you still put a 1 there, it won't, change nothing.
No. Nope. Last thing. Example 4, habit to mind question. It says, why do you multiply the numerator and the denominator of a complex fraction by the conjugate of the denominator? What's the whole reason? What it's asking, what's the whole reason for this step right here?
Take away the I at the bottom.
To get rid of the i's in the bottom. Okay, that's the whole reason we do that step. Okay? All right.